So it's 10:01. We'll start the meeting. Call it to order. Everybody's had the chance to review the agenda. And there's Tyler coming on. Okay, any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing none, we'll move along. Morning, Tyler. The adoption of the previous minutes, that'll be me and Jim. Is there any business arising for the minutes that we aren't going to see in a presentation? Probably not, right? So we'll go to public presentations, and we're going to give Carla the floor, I believe.
Okay.
PUC.
Sorry, Kelly, I gotta move this for a second. Yeah.
Is it letting you share, Carla?
Okay.
Perfect.
Sorry, I had to move screens for Kelly to see because he's not sitting beside my computer here. Can you still see the screen? Or can
Yeah,
you-
it's smallish, but we can see it.
Okay. Now can you see? Whoops.
Yeah.
Yes? Okay.
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, thank you. So our last meeting was December 8th. On the water side, we had our Q4 and Q1 samples collected for THMs, HAAs, and nitrite and nitrates. Our regular monthly PMs that we do continually. We had our annual MEC inspection on October 7th with Patty's Drolet, and we got the report on December 12th with 0 non-compliances. She did identify 2 best practice recommendations. I think they were probably in the report before, but backflow prevention program or policy and a bylaw for limiting access to hydrants. These are just recommendations. So we also had our site tours with Northern Waterworks managers for PUC contingency planning. We were very prepared to take over operations with our management group. Not fun, eh, Tyler? Can't see Kelly here, but yeah, that was a long run, and we're very happy it's over with. So on January 9th and 11th, we had water main breaks. There was a break on West Street and a second break on Hamilton and Park, and they were both deemed category 1. Our municipal drinking water license and drinking water permit works permit renewal, it's in the final stages with the director. And I actually expected it last week or this week, but it'll be in place very soon. Jeremy did some troubleshooting with the office area HVAC system. I think he's still trying to locate a proper thermostat. He's done some routine maintenance, but we've been working on that. Unfortunately, again, we're always having valve actuator failures. He had replaced GAC2 with one of the new, I think with the new one that we ordered from last year, and he sent out 3 more for repair assessments. He also did some troubleshooting with the gate. We had left it open a couple of days, but it was just a photo eye sensor alignment, and that's taken care of. We ordered diesel fuel. We usually do it in Q4 of the year, but I guess we were a little late. I think we topped everything up in January. We had 2 low chlorine events since the last meeting, and we've had a few of these over the last few years, but disinfection CT was met for both, and we're currently reviewing processes in place for monitoring and alarms. One problem is we inject the chlorine at the beginning of the process at the contact chambers, and then it overflows to the 2 clear wells. There's about 50 hours of retention time before we see the analyzer reading leaving. So if the chemical pump doesn't fail and cause an alarm, we could have a low chlorine detected through a weekend and not realize until we get the alarm at 0.6 or until staff come in on Monday. So we're looking at opportunities to improve on this. And Jeremy's working on some program to actually track the rate of use in the bulk tank for the hypochlorite. And we're doing some cleaning and refurbishing of the chlorine panel itself. We've had some issues, so we're gonna get that in better shape going forward. So we've also completed our risk assessments and emergency tests. We normally do this with staff, and unfortunately, because of COVID, we didn't do a lot of our reviews with staff, and we ended up doing a thorough review with Kelly. And we actually had another supervisor hired temporarily that we had on for 3.5 months. He's left us now after the agreement's complete, but we reviewed a long history with both of them to get everybody up to speed in case we were actually the ones operating. So we recently completed our management review with our top management here, and we need to schedule a report to owner. And we also have to do lead sampling in 2022. It's been reduced to every 3rd year, and we'll be looking for a list of volunteers. We would like to start in March, and it has to be done by the 15th, and we're looking for 20 residential samples. Wastewater activities, again, our monthly PMs. We are continuing with the digester operations, meaning wasting and decanting whenever the weather is around 0. We do hold the solids, as you're well aware, over the winter, and this time of year, if we have any major storm, we are at the risk of a bypass. So that's the needs for Tulloch and SEMA and future upgrades. Yeah, the guys have continued doing some cleaning of the UV channel and the clarifier weirs. We've ordered our spring supplies for the UV, and we completed the Q4 federal regulatory report online. And not on pump number 2, we ended up waiting through the fall, but we had to remove the pump to take the pitless adapter to Xylem. They had the pump already, and they retrofitted that claw for the flight pump, and it was installed on February 4th. So call out since our last meeting, we had the one water main break was on West Street, was on a Sunday. I had Jeremy on call. He came in and helped Al isolate, and he increased flows at the water plant. And then we ended up calling in Brad Perry because Jeremy's not familiar with distribution operations. He can help, but and then we had a valve actuator failure on GAC 3. And then again, we just recently this past weekend had a failure of the network that required staff to go in and reset the network. And we had a low chlorine also on Sunday through the weekend. So some of our performance, we've been monitoring dual media performance for years because we had those fine many years ago. But since we replaced the media we topped it up in October. I think we were complete towards the end of the month. Our compliance for the month has been over 99%, and it's required to be 95. So we will keep a close eye on the media and measure it annually and keep on top of that because it made a huge difference. So our chlorine residuals for the last year, we always have a low through the months of August, September, this year, October as well. And we increased the auto flushers at the extremities, and we also use the trim chlorine in the plant to increase it to carry the residual for those warmer weather months. And honestly, in December, I think we got a little bit high. We want to keep the target residual between 0.8 milligrams per liter and 1 milligram per liter for disinfection byproducts, and use the trim when necessary. So we were actually using it for some low chlorine events to make sure it was carrying through the system. Our TOC we monitor monthly, and the top line is the raw total organic carbon, and the red line is through the dual media, and the green is treated. We want to see that nice gap between, we knows that our filters are performing well and the coagulant's doing its job. The GAC, we didn't add that. It would actually probably be in between those two lines. So anyway, this is what we want to see here. In our THM historical since 2009, actually, I think we have 2008 data here too, but the MOE was going to reduce this to 80 a few years back, and they didn't do that, but we're targeting being able to maintain 60 or less. And I think our running annual average is currently at 57. So we're staying on top of that. Our HAAs, we've have to report them as of 2020, but we've been monitoring them since 2017. And you'll notice the last result in Q1 is a little bit higher. We're thinking that's because the residuals are maybe a little higher than they should have been at that time of year. We tend to see higher organics in the winter months, and yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on that. But our running annual average is still quite low. It's below 50. So, and that is everything, unless you have some questions or want to backtrack here.
Anybody have any questions on that? Jim?
Thank you, Chair Roy. Yeah, Carla, I think at the beginning of it, you talked about the chlorine loss or the chlorine overfill. Is there anything to worry about or concerns, with the amount of chlorine that is overspilling or losing? Is it costing us money or?
Yeah, one of the issues that we actually found, we actually stocked up supplies through COVID and we overstocked, and hypochlorite has a half-life of, I believe it's 4 months. So we probably had product on site too long and we've noticed a deterioration. So we actually are currently dealing with that now, and we have new shipments coming in. Yeah, there's no issues with disinfection. The one thing that we thought about last year when we did risk assessments was we could add more instrumentation to monitor, but we would need sample pumps for analyzers to pull the chlorine from an interim location in the clear well, and that would definitely give us more information. But then it's more instruments to upkeep, and it's a capital cost up front. So, but the hypo itself, we're dosing the same values that we normally would.
Okay.
Great.
There's a minimum requirement. We have our lows set at 0.6. We want to have it leaving the plant higher than that so that it's carrying, we have to maintain 0.2 in the distribution system. And if it goes below 0.05 milligrams per liter, then it would be adverse. So we're constant, the guys have to do 7 residuals in the system every week, and they're constantly monitoring at the extremities at the auto flushers at Woodward, Kennedy, and Young Fox. So.
Okay, thank you for that, Carla. Pardon me, does anybody else have a question for Carla? If not, we're going to move on to Tulloch Engineering, and that'd be you, Chris.
Thank you, Chair Roy. I guess I do have a quick question for Carla on the valve actuator failures. Is that, I know we talked about them quite a bit. Is there something we can do there? Something we should look at as part of the facility review?
They've improved immensely over the years. Like we honestly could have 5 failures in one day. We've gone through several exercises. They were actually wired incorrectly, the loops through the system. And we've also taken all the actuators off valves that don't need to be automated. So we have, we'll say that we have designated manual valves in the system. Like we don't need an automated valve to take down the flock tanks. We do that a couple times a year to clean them. It's just a quarter turn. So we're trying to minimize the amount of valves that we have, but for the dual media filters and the GACs, that's the most critical ones. And then of course the raw water valve is a modulating valve coming into the plant. So what we've done since Jeremy's been with us since 2015, he's gotten much better control. He's actually got even some counters and ladder logic. Part of the problem could also be the firmware updates. Every time we send actuators back, we get them updated, but we're not at the point where they're all updated. So that could be potentially causing failures as well. With the filters operating really well, we can run on 2 filters now. And with the rehab having adequate raw water supply, we can actually, if we have a valve failure on a weekend or an evening, we can just shut the filter off and deal with it during daytime hours when staff are normally there. So it's manageable. It's not not perfect by any means, and of all the plants I've worked in over the years, I've never seen this issue, but without going through, I don't know, there was a suggestion, I think at one point, to replace them with another type, but there's a huge capital cost there. So,
Okay. Okay, so on to Telek's presentation here. I've just got a quick update on our key projects, much like I do at the other meetings. So on the water treatment side of things, the water system modeling, the model is finalized. We're just going through our final checks and balances and hoping to get the submission into Katie at the end of the month. The water treatment plant facility review, that also is coming for the end of the month. We've got comments back into SEMA, so they're just updating the report. We'll get another draft out or go to a final, depending on how that shakes, but looks like the end of the month for that one as well. And then once the facility review is finalized, we'll move into the intake source assessment, because the two play hand in hand. Looking back, so we had the well rehab rehabilitation completed in 2021. So I'm been discussing with Katie if there's plans in place to start a rehab schedule for 2022, which wells those may be. So that'll be coming up. And the water tower assessment, we're going to retender that at the end of this month as well, exclusive of the treatment plant outfall and the sewage treatment plant outfall. We split those up, just the bidders weren't interested in looking at both plants. Wastewater side, the Haynes and Hawkins sewer, it's still moving along. We've made progress with HCRY to get that permit in place so that we can cross under their line. We're going to be issuing the tender at the end of this month. With or without that approval in place, I expect it to come, but we'll get that out to the contractors for a July start of construction, end of June, start of July. Sewage treatment plant analysis, the draft technical memo 2 was sent out by SEMA, and we had a review and a good meeting on it. So they're finalizing that, those comments, and hope to kick the report back by the 25th of this month. And lastly, a new item is the lift station backup generators for Dawsey and Naden. So those are in the queue to get through the system this year. And those, that's the whirlwind summary of our key projects that we've got going on.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on that? Jim?
Yeah, Chris, back to the intake source assessment. Obviously, there may be a couple of places that might be off, I'm going to say maybe environmentally not plausible, you know, like over by the sewage treatment plant per se, considering we have overflows. So does that eliminate that area for intake source?
Like not necessarily. It's just you need to maintain certain setback distances from those points. If a new lake intake is the way that the analysis shows, it's going to have to be out in the deep water anyway, so it's going to be a fair ways out into the big lake. But as part of the assessment, we have to look at the other two alternatives. You know, do we draw from Blind River? Do we put in a new well field? So that assessment's going to look at those possibilities and steer the kind of an EA process to move forward.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions for Chris? Seeing none, thank you for that presentation, Chris. Again, pardon me, we don't have any public health person on site, so maybe we can give them a nudge to show up next time. We'll go on to administration reports. Do we have anything under that, Katie?
No, I think that Chris has touched on all of the information that we've been working on together, and we're anxious to get the SEMA reports to council for review.
Okay, thank you. We have no addendum and obviously no new business then. So we'll, the next meeting, we've already got in our books for was it June? Second Tuesday, second Wednesday of June, I don't know. Remember, you know which one that is, Katie? You remember?
The 8th,
June 8th, thank you.
oh, sorry, 7th, June 7th. But June
7th?
8th is the Wednesday,
Yeah,
right?
that's a Wednesday. We're
Yeah,
supposed to be,
the 8th.
so it's the 8th.
Yeah.
Okay, so June 8th, same time, 10 a.m. We'll see you there. Thank you for coming out. We're gonna adjourn this meeting at 10:21. Jim, you're gonna move that, and I'll second that. Thank you very much for coming out.